Welcome back to Crooked Spine Show. I want to check, is there a cure for fatigue, insomnia, feeling old, for example, like myself sometimes, or other things? Maybe Chris Burres has come close to finding one. He is a research scientist turned supplement distributor based on ESS60. Once someone started using it, they can't get enough. Let's learn what ESS60 is in Chris's supplement, MyVitalC, and how it can help people and pets also feel their best. All right, Mr. Chris, take it over. Let's hear exactly what is your backstory and how does it connect with everything going on right now with your podcasting, with your interest in my show and everything else. So let's get started.
Yeah. So Dr. Tony, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am the geeky guy that you see in front of you. I love to talk about science. I almost as much as I love talking about science, I love the amazing testimonials that we get from our amazing customers. So I'm in hog heaven, and I'll tell you, if you had asked me 10 years ago, did I think I was going to end up in the longevity space? Was I going to end up having written a book called Live Longer and Better, having done a longevity summit where I got to interview people like Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Stephen Gundry. 10 years ago, I would have said, no, like that's not on the radar. Because 10 years ago, I was just what I call a happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist manufacturing this. If there is such a thing, I'm one. And we were manufacturing this molecule. So I'm holding up a model of a molecule. I don't know what percentage of your audience. Well, it's a podcast, so it's going to go out.
We'll do both video and audio. We'll do both podcast and
excellent. So if you're listening, you don't have to go find a screen. Just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. This molecule was discovered in 1985 at Rice University. That's here in Houston, where we are based. The three scientists who discovered the molecule actually won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short 11 years from being discovering the molecule to being awarded the molecule. We like to say that this molecule won a Nobel Prize, but we all know molecules can't win Nobel Prizes. It's the people who discover them that win Nobel Prizes. The molecule is amazing. The way I describe it is it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is often where people get a little nervous because this is a health podcast. Why are we talking about ink, tires, batteries, and what is it, solar panels? Like these things don't. I didn't wake up this morning, look at my car and think, what component of my car battery should I be consuming on a daily basis to improve my health, right? Like I didn't think about that. And the story actually gets a little worse first. So one of the shapes on the exterior of this ESS60 molecule is the same as benzene. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society. It's absolutely necessary for modern society. Just to prove it, just look around you, wherever you are, carefully if you're in a car listening to this podcast, and imagine all plastics gone, because the foundational molecule for plastics is the benzene ring. It's also used in a lot of medications, including aspirin, like it's the foundational molecule, and detergent. So we literally don't have modern society without it. But when it's on its own as benzene, it's known to be toxic and known to be a carcinogen. So they actually thought this molecule, this ESS60 molecule, would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So that's that's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history. It's peer-reviewed published research. I'm very proud to share that my lab provided the material. My lab is mentioned in that original study. And just to share, our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night, which is pretty remarkable. If you think about What can you take in the morning to positively impact sleep at night? Somebody once told me ashwagandha. I've never messed around with ashwagandha, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I do know things like if you get exercise in the morning, that will positively impact your sleep that night. Also, if you get exposure to the sun, it'll bring the rising and falling of the sun in line with your circadian rhythm, and that will help you fall asleep at night. Other than that, I'm just not aware of many things.
Well, Chris, back up for a second. We're jumping right now from plastics to human use. Help my audience understand why humans can actually consume this. For example, part of it too is oxidative stress, which, for example, causes rust on metals. For one, also breaks things down. For one, how does this prevent that from happening? And how does this go back to what I think it was something called oxidative stress? How does that go back to that as helping actually humans increase the longevity, get their health better, and just as a panacea for overall injuries and wellness?
Well, let's first talk about, okay, so we have this amazing study, 90% extension of life in rats. Why are we confident that humans can take this? The reality is we've all been exposed to this molecule. It is a naturally occurring molecule. Just to kind of explain that, if you take the soot from a candle flame, and you usually collect that soot by putting a cold steel plate over a candle, you get that super dark soot on that cold steel plate. That soot has parts per million or parts per billion of this ESS60 molecule in it, right? So we have all been exposed to it. Now, you can't collect enough of it on that black soot from a candle to utilize in a supplement, so you've got to use different reactors, and that's part of the story that's in my book, Live Longer and Better. When the molecule was first discovered, and really when they started having what I would call macroscopic quantities of the material available to the scientists, they came to understand that this molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of this cage. And that is really important when you start to think about an antioxidant.
Define some of my audience have no idea what antioxidants are. Some of the supplements are too. Define antioxidant and how that works, or even oxidant too.
Yeah, so our body will naturally produce oxidative agents. I'm going to kind of jump and we'll give the framework for what is called our BOSS theory, which is buffering oxidative stress system. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell, right? There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body.
That's your battery,
Yep, except for blood cells, which have 0, and brain and neurons, which have 2 million, right? So that's the crazy amount of energy our nervous system uses relative to our other systems. Like any power source, or not necessarily a battery, but like any power source that we're used to, there's a negative byproduct. You can think about your car going down the road. It's got exhaust. You can think about a power plant. It's got a smokestack and smoke coming out of it. In the case of mitochondria, there are reactive oxygen species. And these can be positive or negatively charged particles that are produced in the process of making ATP, which is the energy source that your cells actually use. Now, normally those reactive oxygen species, those are the things that cause oxidative stress. Like I like to picture them, and I think you kind of touched on this, like little bumper cars where everything they bump into, they're rusting and they're causing oxidative stress and oxidative damage. But again, internal to the mitochondria, you've got antioxidants to manage those reactive oxygen species. And those antioxidants are glutathione, which is a master antioxidant. A lot of people have heard of it. And then, of course, melatonin. Everybody's heard of the sleep hormone, is also a great antioxidant resident in the mitochondria, helping to manage these negative byproducts, these reactive oxygen species. By the way, I love to point out the melatonin is the sleep hormone. Our most consistent testimonial is related to sleep, right? Focus and energy during the day, better sleep at night. So you've got a lot of parallels. So that's where you start to get oxidative stress. Now, does it all come from mitochondria? Well, in some context, that may be true. I usually, my focus is the mitochondria. But as you think about how your body experiences stress, whether it's radiation, too much sunlight, a tough workout, you can think of those things as actually your body needing to respond. And when your body responds, it needs energy that fires up your mitochondria. Now you're producing these reactive oxygen species. You can also get direct oxidative agents into your system. And this would, having good antioxidants would help you to manage that oxidative stress.
It's almost like if we're always in a stressful environment, correct? This is normal life. But how does our body stay healthy in that environment? By having things inside like antioxidants, things working functionally so it can dissipate all the toxins in our body without making us sick.
Well, and you've got two, you're exactly right. And there's one other consideration, right? So let's just point out, without stress, we wither away and die. And if you want a great example of this, think about astronauts going out into space. They don't have to stay in space for very long, and they come back with reduced immune systems, with less bone density. That's just gravity. That's not other stresses. So you absolutely need stress. So that's very pivotal. And then the next thing to understand. So first, you absolutely need stress, and then I have lost my train of thought.
And my thing is basically when I talk to my patients and my audience too, how do we make the stress in our lives not affect our body physiologically, so it cause us to age faster, feel like we're lethargic, feel we have chronic syndromes that are fatigue for one too. And for example, we know stress is linked to cancers, to rheumatoid arthritis, linked to quick aging, even injury recovery at a slower rate for one too. So it's almost like, how do we make sure we have things in our body we can take supplement-wise to help fight our desire to, our need to live longer, but live a healthier life in a simple way, because we can't change for example, I have doctors or patients come to my office and tell me, my medical doctor told me, my job's too stressful, quit my job, leave my family, kick the dog out. And is that practical? No. But can we make our body handle stress better by taking things like you offer, and along with the advice and guidance, so our body can stay healthy in a stressful environment?
Yeah. So 100%, right? Like, so antioxidants can help manage that stress. It turns out, well, one of the things that kind of came back to me is you do have to be careful. If you take too many of the wrong kinds of antioxidants, you can actually dampen your body's response to the stress, right? Like the astronauts in space, when they're not in space, the bones are responding to the stress of gravity, and they're actually building bone density. Well, that stress of gravity does cause some oxidative stress, right? So we are experiencing some level of oxidative stress. If you dampen all of it, then you don't get the benefit. The best example to kind of give is, if you're a bodybuilder, you're stressing your muscles so that you can break down muscle fibers and then build strength and size, right? In the case of bodybuilders. And for the rest of us, it really should be strength, maybe a little bit of size. That's really
Chris,
important.
I just want to be fit, Chris. I'm 51. I just be fit. That's all it is.
Yeah, just be fit. I don't need to be huge. I just need to be fit. Well, and that is so very important, right? So the other thing to realize is, as if you're not managing this oxidative stress, right, coming out of the mitochondria, they're signaling molecules. Some of these reactive oxygen species are signaling molecules that cause inflammation. So this is where, I mean, we have a word called inflammaging, because inflammation is so dire when it comes to the concept of aging, right? If you think about the medical community, they tend to look at aging as an oxidative and an inflammation process. And actually, I can speak. So our product, I'm in Texas, so we put big old check marks on stuff, right? So we're going to put a big old check mark on antioxidant. First, we have an ad hoc study on the web that shows us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C.
Okay.
Peer-reviewed published research that shows us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So we got that big old checkbox on antioxidant. When it comes to inflammation, you have to be really careful about how you speak about inflammation, because the FDA equates conversations of chronic inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. That is to say, arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancer. So if I say, hey, we address chronic inflammation, what the FDA hears right, is me claiming that we cure cancer, Alzheimer's, arthritis, and we are not making that claim. In fact, we might as well put in the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. So we have to be really careful there, right? What the FDA does allow us to talk about is reducing inflammation caused by exercise, right? So we've all had a tough workout, maybe just walked longer than we normally do, and felt that inflammation in our body. We absolutely can say that we address that type of inflammation. And I want to go one step further because we're really excited. We're one of those very rare supplement companies that actually does research and then actually publishes research, right? So this is not typical. If you go in and look at them, they like find a piece of research and then they go hang their hat on it, and they don't ever want to do any research because it might turn out that they're wrong and it's expensive. And so we are very, very different from that. I'd rather know, the truth about our own product and move on in my life than to not know the truth and just pretend, be selling something that I don't,
and Chris, back up 1 second. How did you become a researcher, then become a supplement distributor for one too? It seems like you're on that same path. And being a researcher, you want to make sure your hypothesis has been proven, it's been double-blind study, blah, blah, blah. So you can actually go out there and say the truth, not just try to make a buck.
Yeah, exactly. So let me preface this with kind of this first, which is I believe that most people get into the supplement industry one of two ways, right? The first one is they wake up one day, they decide they want to be wealthy, and they decide they're going to do it with supplements. I have no problem with people being wealthy. It's just not how I ended up here, right? Yeah. The other is that they have their own health challenges, or maybe the health challenges of a loved one, and they get out there and they figure out how to solve it, and now they want to save the world. Hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I am not against people saving the world. It's just not how I ended up here. I've been manufacturing this ESS60 molecule since 1991, a full 5 years before they won the Nobel Prize. And we thought it would be toxic, and we put it in a study, and the rats live 90% longer. And so now I'm in the health space. It's very kind of serendipitous, accidental, and it puts me in a unique position because I'm not some genius scientist who went back in the lab and I created something that's going to address inflammation, at least related to exercise, right? Address oxidation, give head to toe testimonials, unbelievable like when some people will come to me and say, "Hey, Chris, I've been taking your product for about a month. I haven't really noticed anything." I'm not offended because I didn't go back in the lab to make this do anything. I'm just like, that's another data point for me. By the way, most of the time I can say, "How's your sleep?" And then their eyes get really big and they go, "Oh yeah." Right. And now that you ask about sleep, because sleep is so subtle, right? If you think our most consistent testimonial is related to sleep, first off, that could be the reason we're getting all the benefits, right? Because sleep is good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being, right? If you improve your sleep, you're going to improve yourself across the board.
Well, in recovery too, right? Recovery from anything you're going through.
Absolutely, right? And then if you think about most people, maybe not Brian Johnson, right? Like that guy goes to sleep at the exact minute and wakes up at the exact minute. He's a very, we'll call him dedicated. If you're not Brian Johnson, you're getting an extra hour of sleep. I got 1 hour less of sleep last night because I was doing something stupid. I was doom scrolling, right?
You got kids, right? You have kids, correct?
Yes, I do.
You're excused all the way.
Right, like it's your sleep is going up and down, and so when you start saying, "Hey, if you just got that extra hour of sleep every night for a week," you might not remember that it's related to MyVitalC, and so that's what typically happens. Is they say they don't notice anything. If they go off the product, then they're like, "Oh, now I realize what I'm missing." Or if you just ask them the right questions, and we actually have like a tracker that comes with each product, so you can kind of dig in and like, "Hey, are you noticing this? Is this changing? Is this a benefit?" Like, to keep you consistent, because this is something that you do need to be consistent with, and then two, just kind of aware. A lot of people, and I would love to tell you that I'm a super aware, intuitive guy, even about his own physiology, but I have just been caught, with my pants down in the context of, I'll give you the example, right? So from time to time, I have plantar fasciitis. And I was actually working with this software from a doctor who put together Harvard Medical School, voted this software the most accurate online symptom checker, right? Okay. So I was going through his process trying to figure out, my ankle pain or whatever we were calling it. And I answered one of the questions wrong. And so when I got into it, he actually assessed me. He's an orthopedic surgeon. Okay. And he's like, you have plantar fasciitis. Let's go back to the questionnaire and figure out where it went wrong. And where it went wrong is it asked me if I had pain in the morning, which I do, but I didn't think of it. I just thought of I wake up every morning. That's how I walk in the morning. And
Chris, you're not old, my friend. You're not old. That's an old people's experience. Come on.
So anyway, so I would love to say I'm an enlightened, aware person, but the reality is the more intuitive people are and in tune with their health, the more consistently we see positive results. And then usually, like I say, when people fall off of it, then they're like, this is something I'm going to take further. I mean, I'll share this one testimonial because this goes down the path of HSCRP, right? Good. So we're in the middle of kind of our next important study. We actually just cut a check for $150,000. That hurts a little, not going to lie, for a study, which is a 90-day toxicity study that we're just doing to get another big old check mark, right? So we already know that it's safe, but we want to get this study under our belt. The next one is going to be, and we've already started an ad hoc version of this, is HSCRP study. The reason we started this is because a Dr. Lane Young came to our booth. We had a booth at A4M Longevity Fest in Vegas this year. A4M is American Academy of Anti-Aging. And this Dr. Young came up to me and he shared something. And as soon as he shared, I was like, dude, can I record this video? Because this is amazing. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a video of it. He said, Chris, I don't care if you're male, female, pre-surgery, post-surgery, cardiovascular disease, otherwise healthy, your product will reduce HSCRP, elevated HSCRP, into normal ranges in 4 to 8 weeks. And his particular example was he had a client who was sitting at 9, and that's actually a scary number, and I'll explain that here in a second. But he was sitting at 9. His protocols didn't move the needle. Got him on our product. 4 to 8 weeks later, he's at 0.9. Under 1 is normal range, as was good range. And you actually want that even lower. I later learned from a conversation with an oncologist that at an HSCRP of 9, they assume that you have cancer until they prove otherwise, right? That's a very serious number. And our product brings it into normal ranges. So we already are doing an ad hoc study. We're kind of finding out people who have elevated HSCRPs that are not really able to move the needle, getting them 2 months of the product. And then we're doing a follow-up. And there is a small piece that's related to sleep part of the study. So
you're almost reversing it. Okay, these are the results. How do we make those consistent based on what we actually can research based on our studies to make sure, okay, this is actually scientifically proven it does work for this?
Yeah, 100%. That is the goal. And then we already know how we're going to take that into a placebo-controlled, double-blind, awesome, peer-reviewed study, right? That'll be the thing that we really hang our hat on. Mm-hmm. Because, right now, we have rat studies and we have amazing testimonials and we have a solid theory which would explain them. Again, if you're reducing the negative impact, well, I haven't even shared that, right? So you have your mitochondria that's producing energy. And when it gets stressed, it produces extra reactive oxygen species, more than the glutathione and melatonin can manage. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. Mm-hmm. We also know from way back in the 90s, it can hold, we talked about this earlier, it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of the soccer ball cage. So here's what we think is happening. Stressed mitochondria producing extra reactive oxygen species, they get held onto by this ESS60 molecule, so they can't run around and do any damage. And then when that mitochondria replenishes the glutathione and melatonin, then they can manage those reactive oxygen species appropriately. So I have a fun analogy. You did a lot of schooling. So I think you would agree that all good biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras.
Well, uh, I like Buddy Girl. I can't complain about that.
So it's the end of Mardi Gras and you're on Bourbon Street and you got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around Bourbon Street, smashing up cars, windows, spray painting stuff, causing oxidative stress and damage. You've got the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and the melatonin coming in and handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they get stressed or overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they put them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to this ESS60 molecule so they can't do any damage. And then when the New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione, when it can replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss buffering oxidative stress system.
Good. It's almost like you're giving the glutathione and also melatonin a chance to recover or get more of them from the mitochondria without releasing all those oxidative stress toxins to the body, causing the down slope of causing other health conditions, lack of sleep, insomnia, just feeling old per se. You're allowing your body to recover, just give it that window. So now the body can go, okay, now I can actually get back to what I want to do.
I've got another, you're exactly right. I've got another analogy that I think can help kind of wrap this all up. So remember, we mentioned stress is good. And I like to picture us, right? Physiologically, we're a prairie. We've got beautiful prairie flowers and grasses. It's just an idyllic scene. And the light rain is the stress we need, right? So we need this light rain. We need this stress. But what happens when you have this ominous dark cloud in the middle of the prairie dumping water in one stream in one spot in the prairie? It's going to do damage, right? It's going to start to bore a hole in the middle of the prairie. And what we believe is that this ESS60 molecule, you put that in the stream, between the cloud and the prairie, and you could picture it filling up. You could picture it acting like a sponge and holding on to that stress. Okay. It's important to note if that ominous cloud stays there, right? So if you don't get out of that stressed state from time to time, eventually the sponge is going to fill up, it's going to overflow, and then you're going to be impinging on the prairie again and causing damage again. So that you do need to manage that. But once that stress is gone, now you can kind of gently squeeze this sponge out onto the prairie. So now it hasn't had that damage. And we've got a good example that I think really supports that kind of analogy, which is we have a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion. His name is Anthony Kunkel. Absolutely loves the product. And Anthony won a championship at 50 miles and at 50K, which is 62 miles, right? So he's currently running about 200 miles per week. If anybody has dark, ominous clouds of stress on his prairie, it is Anthony Kunkel. And the way he described the product, he said, Chris, when I first tried your product, I was just taking 1 serving, which, by the way, is about 1 teaspoon. I was taking 1 teaspoon, and I didn't really notice anything. And I joke, like all good biohackers, he tripled the serving. By the way, don't triple everything. There's lots of things that you should never, ever, ever triple. So, be careful. But he's a very kind of learned guy. So he's actually one of the better biohackers that I know. So he tripled it, and he shared this with me. He said, I think your product could be the difference between somebody having running as a hobby and somebody having running as a career. It made that much impact on him. And what he says is, I don't believe that this speeds exercise recovery. I believe it prevents damage in the first place, right? Which goes to that prairie, right? If that ominous stream isn't hitting the prairie, then you're preventing the damage in the first place. And his evidence is, when in the past, when the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, by the way, that's a phrase you don't hear very often. I've only ever heard it from Anthony Kunkel. On the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, where strength and stability used to be a problem, they're no longer a problem, right? So this goes to this managing the stress as it comes in. Now, you filled up this ESS60 molecule, or a bunch of them, with all the stress he's putting on them. And then when he goes off later to do his kind of biohacking routines, to do, red light therapy, to do meditation, to
all his recovery stuff.
all of his recovery stuff. Now we're gently squeezing out that sponge, resetting everything for the next day.
Question for you. We talked about mitochondria, glutathione, and melatonin. Why can't we just add more glutathione and melatonin to the body to allow things to recover or reduce the oxidative stress to the body?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The reality is our body is kind of tuned up for the stresses that we're gonna be managing and needing to manage on a regular basis, right? So you can take more glutathione. By the way, glutathione is a tricky molecule. It's a pretty good sized molecule. Can be hard to get through the gut barrier. I'm actually about to interview a glutathione expert who has a topical glutathione. Nayan Patel is his name. So it's actually fascinating to read the book about glutathione because I'm seeing all these parallels where there's probably synergies between glutathione and the ESS60 molecule right there inside the mitochondria, which is pretty fantastic. So if you take extra, though, your body's just going to dispose of it if it doesn't need it, right? It's about how do you ramp up that glutathione and that melatonin when you need it, when you're actually experiencing the stress. Because it just doesn't have a way to store it and then throw it. Like if you were to think about it, I don't know, how do we kind of tie that in with
Well, question for two is, and kind of answer my own question. If we add glutathione and melatonin to the body, does the body self-regulate and then reduce the amount that the mitochondria actually produce?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think you can supplement with glutathione and then it doesn't disrupt how much glutathione you're making.
Mitochondria.
It just, again, goes back to, hey, let's say I need 1,000 of units in my mitochondria in order to manage the whatever, we'll call it 30 miles that Anthony is going to run. Yeah. But if you're sitting there and you don't take that right before you're running, you don't need it right before you're running. So your body's like, well, this is extra, like get rid of that stuff, right? Like this is obviously we're personifying, but the reality is it just doesn't have a way to store it so that then you can throw it at that particular stress load at the time it's happening. And that's where we think that the ESS60 molecule, it can store the stress so that it doesn't do that, that damage in the middle of the prairie. And then later your body can manage that stress appropriately.
Yeah. So basically is able to really encapsulate it, hold it there, and then break it down slowly versus it's glutathione and melatonin almost goes as a river would. If it's not there, it's not going to collect it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's the biggest thing is, and why do you, and you mentioned too, there's a certain amount you should take. And why have you added it to olive oil, ESS60 is it a catalyst or what does olive oil do?
So ESS60 is a carbon powder. And if you were to hold it in your hand, and we sell the powder to research institutions around the world to do research in, it would be a crystalline powder if you were to put it in your hand, and a black powder because it's carbon. So it'd be kind of like a sugar or a salt crystal, but it's a black because it's carbon. Okay. You can consume that, assuming it's ESS60. You can consume that. It's not water soluble, so you would just excrete most of it. It's not very bioavailable. Okay. What happens when you dissolve it in a lipid, right? So we sell it in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. When you sell it in a lipid, it breaks those crystals down to individual molecules. So you have these individual ESS60 soccer ball shaped molecules running around individually in the olive oil. So now they're almost infinitely more bioavailable because they're so small.
It's almost like you're able to absorb it better, I'm assuming, in your body so it can get to mitochondrial level inside of there versus just on the outside.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. that is the key component. Just to give you some idea, right? So I'm holding up this rather kind of large looking molecule. It's almost the size of a soccer ball. The reality is this thing is angstroms across, right? So to give you some perspective, one drop of our olive oil product, just one drop, has more than 400 times as many of the ESS60 molecules in it as you have cells in your body. So take the trillions of cells you have in your body. There's 400 times as many of your cells in terms of the molecule in one drop. Like that's how small this molecule is.
And why did you call it? And basically, this is your product, the Vital MyVitalC is the product of the ESS60 with a lipid such as you mentioned olive oil or avocado oil, also other oils too.
Yeah, MCT oil. So it's really avocado,
Okay.
olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil.
Okay.
Really, the name came out of one, it's vitality. Like we believe that this is a really vital molecule. C as in carbon. And so really VitalC was taken. So we went with MyVitalC. That's where the name came from.
It's almost you've done a good job explaining exactly what's going on with it. And is there, have you done research, or is there research even ad hoc too, to tell why it does help someone with longevity? You mentioned a lot of it, but can you kind of narrow it down to like maybe 3 or 4 sentences?
Well, one, I'll tell you the research that we're doing, right?
Okay.
And that we've done. We've done an ad hoc sleep study. This is kind of a fascinating story
Good.
because pre-pandemic, I was in contact with a professor, Benjamin Smar. He's out of the University of California, San Diego. And he was a consultant at the time for Oura Ring, right? So Oura Ring is one of the better sleep trackers. I'm holding it. It's a ring that sits on your finger. One of the better sleep trackers. And so we had started this sleep study where we could look at the data downstream after people had taken the product. It was the middle of COVID. It turns out this ring is very good at identifying COVID if you have the ring prior to getting it, right? You have to have the baseline data. It notices the temperature spike that you won't notice. So he disappeared. But we continue to do the study, and we're actually still continuing to do today to kind of slowly drip people through this process. It's a crossover study. Basically, we collected 10 days of survey data, and that data looks like how long did it take you to fall asleep, how restless was your sleep, how good was your sleep, and then how good did you feel in the morning. So we collected 10 days of data prior to taking the product, 10 days of data on the product, 10 days back off the product, and then 10 days back on the product. And you can see the spikes as people take it. 100% of the participants reported improvements in their sleep when they were taking the product. And that goes with, I didn't even share this, that Dr. Lane Young, he said, it dramatically brings in HSCRP into normal ranges. He also said that with wearables, they see a 20 to 60% improvement in HRV, heart rate variability, great indicator of health, and sleep.
Wow. So you're helping someone's actually not only their sleep, but also the ability to keep their heart healthy. They're basically avoiding strokes and heart attacks at a phenomenal level.
Yeah. And in fact, HSCRP, I know I gave an example of cancer and oncology. It's actually more closely associated with cardiovascular illness.
And is the overall goal with your company now to get the word out more and almost get FDA approved?
Yeah, well, so it's a supplement, right? It's a naturally occurring molecule. You can collect it from the soot of a candle. So it does fit in the class of supplements. And so the FDA, when I first read this, it's funny. When I first read this, I'm on the FDA website. So, one of my jobs as the chief scientist, figure out where what do we got to do for the FDA? I found this page, and I literally took a screenshot. I was like, they're going to take this down soon. And what it said was that the FDA does not have to approve a supplement before it goes onto the market, right? Which is not what people think. But if you think about what a supplement is and what a new supplement is, then you can understand why the FDA has to take this position. For instance, you could come up with a supplement that's 10% vitamin D and 90% C. Those don't go together very well, but let's pretend. And then I could do the reverse, 10% vitamin C, 90% vitamin D. We have 2 supplements. There's it's basically infinite how many supplements can be put together. And the FDA is not going to evaluate all of those before they come to market. Yeah. It is the responsibility of the supplement company to report any serious adverse side effects to the FDA. Good. By the way, if you have one, that doesn't mean they're going to close you down. They're looking for patterns where it might actually be dangerous. Everybody's N of 1. And we understand as we grow this company, someday somebody's going to, have some sort of experience unrelated to our product and blame our product. And then that is something that we'll have to report to the
human
FDA.
nature, right? Human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so just to share with you, we have not had any serious side effects since we brought this product to market in 2018 that we needed to report to the FDA. So we've had some people who with complaints. We've kind of dug in. Hey, send us the medical records, and then they kind of back out. And so it might have been a money grab. I won't put. I won't put.
But all California, most likely. That's most.
Yeah.
Down to. I mean, and it's really, is there any downside by taking too much of the MyVitalC?
Yeah. So, well, one is what's the toxicity level?
Yeah.
And I tend to look at the toxicity level and think that it's the same or related to the toxicity level of olive oil, which involves drowning, I think. Right? So here's the reality. At some point, if you're consuming a lot of oil, your body will just say, no, I've had enough, and you'll throw it up. Right? Like it's just too much oil in your system and your body just throws it up. So that is the reality. It's even in this context safer than water, because your body will continue to take on water. If you drink it way too fast, you can actually cause hyperhidrosis and actually death. Like your cells will fill with too much water and explode. And so it's actually safer than water in that context, because you'll start to throw it up before you get on the other side. I know if people have taken a full 120 mils a day, right? So 5 mils is a teaspoon. I don't think I've ever taken that much, but I've certainly taken 3 or 4 tablespoons in a day. When it gets busy, or what happens to me now is I'll get that tickle in the back of my throat where I know that I'm about to get sick. Okay. But then it just never manifests. Like that's typically what happens. And I can tell you this is such a contrast from when I was younger. I remember being in a Spanish class and the subject came up and I was like, yeah, I get sick like 4 times a year. It usually takes me out for like 10 days. And the lady next to me was like, oh, you're sickly. And I played, semi-professional soccer. The one thing I never thought of myself as was sickly, right? But I'm like, I used to get sick 4 times a year and it would take me out for 10 days at a time. That just doesn't happen anymore.
And almost once you're on it long enough, now you have a good baseline of what your health should be. And when you're off. So at that point, I may take a little more to get myself back on what I think is my normal standard for my body.
Yeah.
What's it take dosage wise? I'm just thinking in my head too.
Yeah.
How long should you take it? Say if you're doing pretty good, 5 millimeters, 1 teaspoon per day to get into your system, then you can maintain. What's your, I guess, recommendation how that works?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. If you think about the fact that 1 drop has 400 times as many ESS60 molecules as you have cells in your body, right? So then you ramp that up. I did the calculation at one point, how many drops are in a teaspoon. The numbers are just astronomical. And so you're really talking about how quickly can you get those ESS60 molecules into the kind of relevant mitochondria. We don't really have an idea for that, but I would imagine it's in the time frame of a week, right? And then kind of the next outshoot of that, of what you just asked is, hey, how quickly might I notice a difference? So I'm going to share with you kind of wildly variable outcomes in this context, like how quickly. The first is, I've got a video from a lady. I'd sent her some product. She started taking the product in the morning that she made the video. At the end of the day, she made the video. And one of the things that she shared was that day she did not finish her cup of coffee. If you're a coffee drinker and you noticed that you didn't finish your cup of coffee, that's same day response, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I actually do drink coffee, but I drink it more like I don't need it. It's more like I come to work and I make my cup of coffee, and actually what I do, right? It's routine, right?
Yeah.
And what I end up doing is I actually put our MCT product, so about 1.5 teaspoons of our MCT product, kind of like a bulletproof coffee thing, right? But I don't want all the calories and the ghee, so I just do MCT. While that's blending because it's oil and water, then I take 1.5 teaspoons of our olive oil product, and that's what I do on a daily basis.
That's how you get into your system, is through your coffee per se.
Yep.
Nice. And why is your product good for pets?
Oh, well, so we think it's going to be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, why did these rats live longer? Like, and I'm going to share something else, because my director of research came to me and he said, "Hey, Chris, you know that research paper? It could have been 5 separate research papers." And let me share with you 2 other things,
Okay.
Pieces of that research paper. So one is they took a separate group of the rats, given water, olive oil. So water is the control, olive oil is the semi-control, and then olive oil with the ESS60 molecule. They injected them with carbon tetrachloride. Now, carbon tetrachloride is a highly oxidative poison. Like, this is just a poison that attacks the liver and it does oxidative damage in the liver. They euthanized the rats. They looked at their livers. The water rats did not recover. The olive oil rats barely recovered. So it had just started the recovery process. The ESS60 rats were almost fully recovered by the time that they had euthanized the rats and invested, dissected and looked at their livers. So liver protective effects are absolutely on board. And then you also think about these rats that lived 90% longer. So a typical Wistar rat lives about 32 months and has a known amount of tumor mass in its body. The longer it lives, the more tumor mass it has in its body. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, none of them had any tumors. Right? So I've told this story and people are like, "Oh, cure for cancer." And the answer to that is no. Again, I think we made that clear. And I always follow it with another no. There's a huge difference between dealing with a cancer that has metastasized and potentially being a cancer preventative. We know things as simple as good nutrition, good sleep, good exercise can be cancer preventatives, and that just throws this in that particular category. I can share with you, there are in fact patents related to the molecule as cancer treatments for pets, and this is just kind of a fascinating study. It's a Petri dish study. So Petri dish study is one of the lowest. Like, you have anecdotes and then you have Petri dish. You probably would take anecdotes over Petri dish because they're going to be more amazing things can happen in a Petri dish and then kill you when you take it, right? So
not good. You're not selling it well, Chris. You're not selling it well.
So you've got a Petri dish with cancer cells and healthy cells, and they introduce an anti-cancer agent, which is a poison, right? The goal is to poison the cancer before the healthy cells. In the presence of the ESS60 molecule, you have increased efficacy of the anti-cancer agent against the cancer cells and protective effects. So they actually kills more cancer cells because of the presence of the ESS60 molecule, and then protective effects on the healthy cells. Now, my current theory is, well, we've already talked about how we're adjusting the mitochondria. Cancer cell mitochondria use a different energy source. They're actually very focused on sugar as their energy source. So they operate totally differently. And so that's the current kind of thought process of, we're supporting healthy mitochondria, and then those are unhealthy mitochondria, so we don't really support them as well.
That's a different source of energy, different way to actually stay alive, per se.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And then what have you seen results in pets that has shown to be, I guess, give you evidence why it actually does help pets? Maybe cats, dogs, combination of both.
Well, so one I can share with you, because I'm always kind of scouring the literature, that the molecule was used in a study on beagles looking at inflammation. And the inflammation markers of the beagles who took the product, I think that was in grapeseed oil, right? Maybe not an ideal oil, but still they had reduced inflammatory signatures in the beagles. So like that's peer reviewed, published in beagles, done, right? Some of the testimonials that we have are, so let me share you this one, because this kind of blends a couple of testimonials and also finishes. I didn't answer the question, the kind of how quickly can we see response same day. This one kind of answers the opposite of that, right? So our largest distributor here in Houston is a lady by the name of Gwen, and she originally ordered the product for her dog, who's a Shih Tzu, right? So a little Shih Tzu, it's older. She's like, let me try this. She had no intention of taking the product. She started giving it to her dog, and she noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she was like, I think I need to take this.
Might as well.
And one of the points with pets is, and this is new to your audience members, like they should have their radar going on. Like if I were you, my radar would be going on. This is new. There's research, there's good testimonials. Let me dig into that research. Maybe some of this is placebo. Let's be honest, some of it is placebo. Just like some of statins working is placebo. Just like some of everything working or not working is placebo. That's a fact. But in the case of pets, there is no placebo effect, right? The pets, ironically, aren't smart enough to realize they got the little dropper and now they have more energy for the day. No, they feel better, they act better. Gwen orders the product for herself and starts taking it. So then I do a video with her, and in that video she shared, if you had asked me at the 3-month mark, if I had noticed anything, my initial gut response would have been, no, I haven't noticed anything. But then I slowed down and I started taking stock of my life, and I'm like, wait, I'm working later, right? So I'm getting more done. I'm waking up earlier. And I never was a morning person before. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement ever, she cleaned her garage. Now we don't have any marketing literature that says, you want to clean your garage, take MyVitalC.
There you go.
We don't have that. But it does mean something, right? The garage is never an easy task. Sometimes there's actually emotional baggage out there that you don't want to deal with. Yeah. And so it is actually a good testimonial about having the energy to address that particular challenge. And so, that's where, and that she still fits in that kind of category of, I didn't notice anything until I really slowed down and took stock of my life.
And it's amazing when, and the opposite too, right? We don't understand our body gets unhealthy until we get sick. We start doing, we don't realize the lifestyle we've chosen has made us sick over time, not just on day one. Yeah. And reversing that too, do you recommend someone who takes your MyVitalC, your supplement, to change your lifestyle, or does it help them change your lifestyle?
Well, I think it's both. And I'll give you the example. One, if you're just, I love the phrase, if you're a dumpster fire of health, right? One, this potentially can help, and you still have to get things right. You've got to get your nutrition right. You've got to get your exercise right. You've got to get your sleep right. And I believe at least with the sleep, we can help. I'll give you one particular example. So my father-in-law, so this is my wife's father, lives, he's passed now, but he was in Panama, and he needed a cane to walk, and that slowed him to the point that he wasn't walking. Started taking our product, was actually able to start walking without the cane. Now he starts walking. Well, that's exercise. He starts losing weight. He was much healthier after this, right? So in some context, he was a dumpster fire. This helped him in a way so that he could get back on track. He ended up dying in the middle of COVID. So, so I think it would be a grave misrepresentation of, hey, you just take this and you don't, sit on the couch and, you don't have to do anything. No, you really do want to focus. And it's one of the reasons that I wrote the book, because I think it's to share with people what the possibilities of longevity are. Like, how long can we live? And then also when I did my longevity summit, which I'm relaunching in August, so people can connect with me and we'll get that information to you. I interviewed those 55 experts in longevity, Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Stephen Gundry. So it's a pretty spectacular event. But that's why I'm doing those. That's why I'm doing the podcast, Live Beyond the Norms, so that I can get that information out to people. And, I do want to share. So this is kind of cool. You think about biological aging and biological age tests. Let me share with you some of the results. At this, we were recently at the Health Optimization Summit, which was in Austin, an amazing event. The booth next to us was a former Apple engineer, which is just cool, right? Because you don't bump into former Apple engineers very often. And he fit the part. Like, he looked like, you're like, yep, that dude's an Apple engineer. I can tell. Just like he fits the mold. He created an ERC, I think it's ERC, erythrocyte ESR separation rate. Erythrocyte separation rate. So basically, you take a drop of blood and a capillary tube, and you put it upright so gravity acts on it, and the rate at which the blood cells separate from the plasma gives you an indication of your inflammatory status, right? Like how inflamed are you? So I took that test. He has a biological component of that. And he's like, you are 20 plus years younger biologically, according to your ESR test, than your chronological age. So great. I'm excited about that. The next one is glycan age. Glycan age looks at glycans and how they sit on on your blood cells, and is a great indication also of inflammatory status, as it turns out. That particular study had me, I think I took that when I was 54. It had me at 21, which is amazing. I love that.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to be younger. Can you still drink if you're biologically under 21? I don't know.
Well, that's the judge on that one.
So that's a pretty phenomenal result. And then the other one, which I don't like the results as much, but I do like the direction. So my DNAge, well, I took that first when I was 51. It had me at 59, so you can see why I wasn't very happy with that. But it's data, right? Like all I care in this case is data. I retook that at 54. So 3 full years later, that test had me at 58. So reversing biological age. And I don't know if you're paying attention, like Brian Johnson has this thing called the Rejuvenation Olympics, where people share their biological age and how it's going. He's currently in the lead because he's at 0.4. So each year that passes, he ages biologically 0.4 years, right? So he's cut it past half. But in my case, over 3 years, I reversed my age by 1 year. So by far, I would have been the leader on that platform. So that's kind of fascinating. But again, these are all kind of tied to inflammatory markers and different studies that we'll continue to do.
As we wrap up, Chris, what do you want? Anything I missed that you want to talk about first?
No, I think
we covered everything,
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're really good.
What do you want to end the show? What's a good takeaway you want to share with my audience to get them to understand the need to actually get their body working better, to make sure our body is able to, if you want to call it, break down the stress in our body, oxidative stress, toxin for one also. How do you want to present that information as a need, a sense of urgency, I want to say? Yeah.
So to have the right kind of urgency, I lean on this. There's a thing called the longevity escape velocity, right? Okay. And what that is at some point, I believe the medical community, every day that passes, the medical community will extend life by 1.1 days, right? So a little bit more than a day. And at that point, we have achieved the longevity escape velocity. And once the technology is all kind of spread out, right? Because the diseases of aging that will probably take you out are cancer, cardiovascular disease first, cancer, Alzheimer's. These are the 4 horsemen. And if the technology starts to work 1.1 days on one of those 4 horsemen, then you've got to solve the other ones too, right? So there's some caveats here. But I believe we'll get to this point where there will be a last person who dies of natural causes. And I've got some good evidence for this. It would suck to be that last person. They won't know, right?
Make the history books, so you'd be part of history. We'll be good.
Yeah. The last person was. And to be clear, like you fall out of an airplane without a parachute, you're still going to pass. Like like we're not going to have solutions for that, I don't think. Unless we get into like the AI and, digital stuff. I don't know how that's going to go. But this is something that I think is going to happen. And you should be doing everything healthy for yourself, including like if your mindset is, I don't really want to live that long, like let's start shifting the mindset, right? Because you can have value to society beyond maybe what you are currently doing, beyond maybe what causes you to think, I don't really want to live that long, right? And let me give you some evidence for the fact that we are going to cross this longevity escape velocity. In 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years. And that's 50 years in 1950.
Okay.
And I started kind of referencing this data point. It's probably about 9 months ago. It's probably faster now, but they say that currently medical information is doubling every 3 months. So what that means is at the end of 2025, we're going to have 16 times more medical information than we had at the beginning of 2025, right?
Wow.
And that doesn't include AI, right? Because I've been using this number for about 9 months, maybe a year. And so AI was really just coming on the scene. And I think everybody who's played around with AI can kind of see how that's going to positively impact things. But if you think about it, I think what AI is going to do, I mean, you can write papers a little faster, right? Like, here's the data, write my paper, right? But that doesn't save that much time. It does save some time. It doesn't save much time. I think the impact of AI is going to be, hey, there's these 25 studies that I would like to do.
Okay.
Which one makes the most sense? Which one is going to have the biggest impact? And AI will be able to answer that. And then you go do the study on rats or mice or dogs or chimpanzees or ultimately humans to understand the actual value. Choosing the right study to do is significantly more valuable than just being able to write the paper faster. So those are the things that I lean on to say, there's a reason to really push yourself to be healthy, because there's a finish line, right? And the people who don't cross the finish line will be the people who pass, and the people who do cross the finish line, like, try and cross that finish line. By the way, when you really get it focused, and it's not necessarily easy, it's also not hard per se, but when you get it focused, you actually feel better. Like, you feel a lot better, right? I've been in the last 12 months, I've put on 5 pounds of muscle. I turn 56 next month.
Awesome.
You're not supposed to be putting on 5 pounds of muscle. That's not supposed to be happening, right? If you look at the sarcopenia, the muscle wasting curve, I'm well on the other side age-wise, and it's supposed to be all downhill, and it's not, right? I'm adding muscle mass to my body, and you can too. It does take some effort, but it is absolutely doable.
It's almost like if you want to have I think people don't want to live longer if their quality of life is going to decrease. But since we know that this is 2025, we know what to do to stay healthy. We know what to do to how to know what our health is at this point. We just have to put the work in, take our supplements, eat good food, not smoke crack, things like that.
Yep.
You know, it's almost like we know what the root. It's just doing the right things and having products like yourself that actually work and are, I want to say, scientifically research based, that allows people to go, this does work. I know how it works. That put in my body so my body can work better to reduce the oxidative stress in my body. So the long-term chronic conditions that I may get, those 4 horsemen you mentioned, doesn't happen to me.
Yeah. Or it happens further down the road, giving you the time for the medical community to figure out how to fix it. Yeah.
Nice.
Or avoid it. Yeah.
Do you have a bottle of your MyVitalC?
Yes. Well, I've got the box and the bottle.
Yes. And also the book too, please. I want to promote both. At that point, I think when you read the book, I read your abstract too, it gives you understanding how important it is and why you should make it important to you to actually see the benefits. So one more time with the bottle and the book, if possible, and a quick smile for the thumbnail.
Right. Let's
We're
get
good
this
to go.
chat.
Yeah.
And then the book.
I think, Chris, is you're giving someone a need to really understand the urgency, I think, to not wait till tomorrow. At that point, if you do the right things, you can live a healthy life and feel like you're not going to go downhill just because you're older.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to share this because I think it's kind of fun, and then it can kind of wrap this up, which is I share the story of these rats living 90% longer with a lot of people, right? That's one of my jobs. I love that piece of my job. And I sometimes kind of jokingly say I get 2 responses. If they're from New York, they're like, why would we want rats to live longer? Chris, you are an evil, evil person. You should bury this research. This is bad. But then the other one, like kind of more on the up and up, is a lot of people are like, I don't want to live longer. And then at first it kind of surprised me, but I realized when they hear that story, they hear exactly what you were talking about. How much longer would you like to live in some sort of state of infirmment? And the answer for most people is not much, right? Like it depends on how bad the infirmment is, and also like not much. But if you change the question And you're like, Dr. Tony, if you have the same mental capacity that you have today, and you have the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer, maybe even a lot longer? And that shifts. That's the mindset shift. That's why I wrote this book, because we need to shift that mindset.
And you're going to, it's not only you, but your family too will appreciate it long term.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
Chris, phenomenal work. Appreciate explaining everything. And I think you have a great show here in the future. I think this will kind of help you promote not only your product, but also getting people to understand how longevity is not a complex thing.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about the URL for your audience. We actually made one.
Good.
Yeah, we made one for your audience. It's already live right now. So anybody wants to go check it out, myvitalc.com/crooked spine. When you go there, there is a coupon code there. You have to go there to get the coupon code. It's good for $15 off your initial order. I'm going to kind of walk you through the right things to do there. Okay. We do sell the product in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. People regularly ask me which one. You heard I actually like MCT in my coffee and the olive oil. People are like, I want to try one. What is it? We always say olive oil for two reasons. The first reason is we're a science-based organization, and almost all of the research is in olive oil. So we want to stay with where the research is. The second is you actually get a higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. You get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and then about 0.3 in MCT oil. So definitely go for the olive oil. We do offer a 25% discount to go on subscription. Do not worry. Our customer service team has more than 1,000 5-star reviews. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. You can cancel at any time. Please go ahead and take advantage of that discount.
Good.
A little note about the book, because I have a charity piece I'm really proud of.
Okay, got it.
You can find the book, Live Longer and Better, on Amazon for $20. There's no charity piece there. If you come to the website, again, use the myvitalc.com/crooked spine. Get that $15 coupon. Go to the menu structure, find the book for it, and it's $20 on our website as well. For $10 extra, I'll sign the book for you. 100% of that $10 goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which is a great movie about a horrible topic. It's child sex trafficking, which clearly needs to be removed from our planet as soon as possible. Operation Underground Railroad is tackling that problem in an amazing way. And so 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
Fantastic, Chris. Chris, you're helping people and giving more back. So thank you.
Yep.
Right now, thanks for watching, guys, and hang out with Chris for 1 second, okay?
Sounds good.